Hey everybody, I wanted to make a video because I haven't in a little bit and I don't want to edit anything, so it's just going to be this weird sort of impromptu thing where there won't be a lot of editing and whatnot. I just wanted to talk about this because I think it's kind of interesting. The list of top selling PlayStation games, PlayStation 1 for this, is fascinating. Now, this list is obviously on a wiki. It is potentially super wrong, but I think there's probably some truth to the numbers here. What it's going over is just PlayStation 1 games that are in the 1 million and above range. So I just kind of wanted to look at it because there's some here that are kind of interesting. So way down here at 113 is Tekken 1. Now, I've looked at the top of the list, and having Tekken 1 being so low I think is pretty interesting. At the time, 1995, fighting games were pretty big, but I guess this would have been just kind of like a no-name, maybe Virtual Fighter sort of look-alike type game. So still, a million's great, but it is just interesting that the first one here is so low after it's, in such high regards and stuff. I guess more the franchise. The first Tekken I hear is pretty rough. Then right above it, we have Street Fighter Alpha 3. Now, it would be kind of interesting if you were Street Fighter and you see just this sort of no-name kind of like pop out of nowhere and kind of match you. It just kind of shows Street Fighter's 3, at least Alpha 3, wasn't doing super good at the time. Maybe it's just because I released it too much. Ugh, I really should know more about these games, but I'll skip over some that I find uninteresting, like NBA and whatnot. But we got IQ Intelligent Cube. It's a really cool game. I only played like a little bit on like the PlayStation Classic, but I thought it was pretty cool. It's such a vibe. It really is like PS1 turned into a game. Like, it's almost like you made a game out of like what you imagine the PlayStation 1's like menu and UI stuff is and the sound effects and everything. I think it's really fascinating. Some of these, I don't know. Densha de Go. Is this one of the drum games? I'm really sorry if someone's a big fan of the franchise. Mark the Lad 2. We're getting into some kind of JRPG-ish territory. We're probably going to see a lot more of those. I don't know the franchise much. It looks like it's kind of a tactics-based game, but this is probably something I would have really enjoyed as a kid. Although the cover art's kind of weird. The shading on his nose and stuff. A SpongeBob game. I actually didn't know a SpongeBob game came out on the PS1, if I'm being totally honest. Twisted Metal 4. Yeah, so it's interesting because you have Twisted Metal 4, you have Twisted Metal up here, 101. It just kind of shows like maybe people weren't as interested in this one. I remember watching a retrospective. Did Twisted Metal, it went up and then they were going a certain way that people weren't happy with, and it kind of rebounded around Twisted Metal Black was kind of like what people wanted from it again. So was 4 just like too goofy and stuff, or did it come out too fast? Not sure about that actually. Saga Frontier, the Saga games. We're still in just the million-ish, but we'll see a lot of Square on here, and they'll probably be dominating the top tiers. So we got Parasite Eve 2, Ace Combat. That must have been pretty fascinating at the time, like a big air combat game on the PlayStation 1. I know, like, obviously Nintendo 64 launching with Pilot Wings, like at the time it would have just been like, whoa, look at these cool like plane games, like flying, isn't this cool? And I think just that novelty alone would have been pretty fascinating to see back in the day. We got Star Ocean, another great JRPG series here. I don't know if the first one was like rough or anything like that. Here's Arc the Lad 1, which did better than 2. I always thought that most of the time sequels in video games like sell more, but it could be wrong that actually doesn't happen too often, or less than I think. I don't know. I always felt like sequels always sell more. Resident Evil, this is the director's cut. So was this the one where it had the bad soundtrack where they kind of messed up on stuff? I'm unfamiliar if the director's cut did something that was like really funky that people didn't really like, but I think that's interesting. We'll probably see just Resident Evil 1 up here somewhere. Then we got Tales of Destiny. This is on my list to play. I played some of the Tales games and I have friends that really love them, but I'm so fascinated by this original Tales of Destiny. It's the same franchise, right? I sure hope so. Turbo Dungeon, NASCAR, NBA Live, Ace Combat 3, Xenogears. This is like a super ultimate game that people like love, and it's, it's one of those like big games. Only 1,200,000. I guess that kind of makes sense. It probably would have been kind of funky. I'll try to remember the date it came out because I don't know if it was before or after Final Fantasy, but that's pretty interesting. Wow, and then Dragon Quest 4 way down here. I thought this would be way higher, I'm unfamiliar with Dragon Quest IV. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. And then we got Dino Crisis 2. People keep going on about Dino Crisis. It's a franchise that should be brought back. And I agree. It would be super cool to see. Exo Primal probably was originally going to be that, and then it got out of hand. But Dino Crisis is cool. Dinosaurs are scary again, so that's cool. You got Yu-Gi-Oh! Resident Evil DualShock version. I didn't even know this existed, but I'm imagining it's just, you know, you can use the other analog stick or something. It's over the director's cut, so the director's cut must have been pretty rough. Legend of Dragoon, this is also on the list. This was like PlayStation's answer to Final Fantasy VII, right? Where it's like, let's make our own. And it's interesting that it's so low, 1,000 or 1,200,000. I thought it would have been at least like mid-range-ish, but I mean, that makes sense, I guess, why they didn't make another one, because we're sold well. It, you know, maybe wasn't even half at where they kind of hoped it would be. I don't know. And Memory World. Here we got sports games and stuff. Dance Dance Revolution. Actually didn't know Konami produced these. That's or made them. That's fascinating. And we got Twisted Metal 3 here, so still a ways to go from like the height of it. But yeah, Tomb Raider Chronicles. Is this a sequel or? Okay, I'm unsure if Tomb Raider Chronicles is a sequel, but Siphon Filter. I know people really like this franchise. Remember X Game type games, snowboarding, skateboarding, all that. That's cool stuff. We have Hot Shots Golf. That's like a franchise that people like. Grand Theft Auto 2, obviously Grand Theft Auto now. Was Grand Theft Auto 2 still a top-down one? I think so. It wasn't until 3 that they went like actually like 3D. So only at 1,400,000. Parappa the Rapper. So this is interesting. This is like another, you know, what would be like best on the franchise contester, and it's at 1,400,000. So like, there's still like way more games that are above it, but it's actually potentially on the lower end of these mascot type games, besides maybe like, you know, Twisted Metal or something. But that's pretty interesting. I suppose it is very niche, but anytime people talk about it, they're like, oh, I love it, I grew up with it, you know. So I'm imagining that maybe it had more people dedicated to it, but or sorry, more people that played it, but I suppose not. Yeah, Chrono Cross. This is kind of on my list to play, but it's so kind of slow. And I'll be honest, I don't love the main character's like double-bladed staff. And I know that's a really like lame reason not to play it or try it, but I just really don't like that aspect of it. And it's interesting also that it's this low as well. Just how much I hear people talk about it as like an important piece of the PlayStation 1. It's really interesting, especially coming from Chrono Trigger. Like, it is the sequel or loose sequel or something, right? So you'd think that would have brought people more over, but I guess most people would have been from the Super Nintendo. Maybe they didn't have a PS1. Legacy of Kain. I didn't know much about the Legacy of Kain series until I saw a retrospective, and I gotta say, it's pretty cool. I think as a kid, I didn't like the designs of the main characters and stuff, but seeing it kind of in action and stuff, I think it's pretty rad, and it's kind of soft on my list of ones to play. Bug's Life. It's so funny to see, and it's like, obviously you're gonna have tons of games from movies and TV shows and whatever on this list, but it is funny to see like something like this just beating out like things like Parappa the Rapper, or, you know, a Dragon Quest, you know what I mean? So it's really funny. And Honor, good game. Oh, here's Twisted Metal 2, 50. See, that's pretty interesting. I thought this would be way higher. You know, just how much people talk about it being part of the legacy so much. Then we got Siphon Filter 1 here. This whole chunk, I'm really fascinated to see if there's like a huge jump, because the numbers haven't like jumped up too much. They've been kind of simple, like a, you know, bit more escalation, whatever, but they're not like, you know, skyrocketing yet. So it'll be interesting, because once they start like jumping, then you know like certain games are selling out of the normal kind of range. This is like a healthy range to be in. I don't know. I kind of wish they would have put the budgets here just to see if it was profitable or not, because I think at the time almost all these would have been like really good sellers, obviously, because budgets, I don't think they weren't getting high enough that, you know, you had to sell insane numbers like today. So these would have been fantastic, but I'm just saying, like, I wonder how profitable some of these would have been. Crash Bash. That's actually a higher seller than I thought, because people hate this game so much. And it looks not super fun, but Yeah, 45. That's not bad. And Parasite Eve. That's another super big franchise. Well, not franchise game that I know is pretty beloved. Haven't really played it either. Guess I haven't played most of these. Silent Hill being 2 million. That's when we crossed the 2 million mark. That's pretty cool because this was kind of a new kind of horror game at the time, and it's a bit more unique in the fog and stuff. I gotta say, the fog aspect of Silent Hill is genius because you took the limitations of the systems and you turned it into like a story element, and that's probably one of the best cases of a utilizing what's there. Get up to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. This is actually kind of interesting. Maybe I thought all the Tony Hawks would be in the top 20. But at 39, that's interesting. Hot Shots Golf. I hear the Hot Shot games are super great and everyone loves them. Camelot. Is that the same guys who did the Mario Tennis games, at least for the Game Boy and stuff? Interesting if that's the case. Crash Team Racing. Just because we see Mario Kart just destroying the charts today, you'd think that maybe this would have been in the top 10 or something, but not necessarily the case, although this is probably by far the best karter game on the PS1. I remember playing it back in the day. I liked it. It kind of, like, there was always Mario Kart, and then for me there was kind of Diddy Kong Racing and Crash Team Racing were kind of in the same boat of like, oh, these are the other ones you'll play if no one has Mario Kart. Maybe that'll make some people upset, but I know that nowadays I think I'd rather play like Diddy Kong Racing than both of those games, but right now we're getting up to the 30s and we got Final Fantasy Tactics at 33. This is kind of fascinating in a sense that just based off today, well, I was going to say tactics games don't tend to sell like crazy well, but there's the Fire Emblem games, there's like XCOM. Those kind of might be it. Final Fantasy Tactics, XCOM, and Fire Emblem. And the other ones might be more niche kind of titles, but Final Fantasy Tactics, I was going to say, it seems like people were maybe more interested in like more unique, interesting games, but at the time, I think there was a lot of those. So where you think now it's like, whoa, this genre did super well back then. Gamers used to be super cool. It actually is like, there were so many of those that were like garbage. And they were just chasing trends. Like this thought of, that's unique to us now because we haven't had one in a long time, or really good ones in a while. So, but at the time they were huge. Like if you look at fighting games, like nowadays you're thinking, man, why don't they make fighting games anymore? And I miss these fighting games, and they should make more fighting games. But if you went back to that era, there were so many fighting games. There's Star Wars fighting game, like it was just everywhere, and it was probably really annoying. Like it's like another fighting game, kind of like how we're like another FPS. Maybe not FPSs anymore, but you know what I mean. Another open world, third-person shooting game. So it's kind of that, and I think a lot of people forget that. But anyway, side tangent. Then we got Dino Crisis 1. See, this is way higher than Dino Crisis 2. I wonder what happened with that. Maybe the first one was just so unique or something. Because it's right under Resident Evil. Like, that's pretty interesting. In terms of release dates, they were pretty far off, though. But that's really interesting. When did Jurassic Park come out? That's the big question. Because this could have rode off the coattails of Jurassic Park. Or maybe it didn't come out yet. And Driver 2, I remember Driver 3 in the PS3. That was a fun game. Croc being 29 at 3 million sales is very funny to me. Because I only know of Croc as like bad game. And I understand that bad games or whatever can be higher, but I didn't know it was so high. It being in the top 30 best-selling games of all time and like outselling like, Parappa the Rapper and a lot of those Twisted Metals and like Parasite Eve and Silent Hill 1, and it's like Croc. At the time, you're looking for something for your kid. It's colorful, it's nice, it's cool. It makes sense. It's weird in hindsight that we know what Croc is. 20 Hours Pro Skater 2, like this is, I think for most people, it's like legendary of legendary. Like it's in the top 10 like best games of all time for a lot of people. Now, I could be thinking about Pro Skater 1. I thought Pro Skater 2 was a little bit more beloved. But it only being 28, like I figured it would be definitely in the top 10, probably in the top 5, but it being 28, interesting. Spyro, number 26. Man, what a crazy legacy that this has kept up due to its interesting fan base. But this is like pretty crazy for such a, like it was a new game at the time and new franchise. And it's like someone pointed out, it's like the only 4 like quadruped protagonist. I guess Frogger, maybe. but like there isn't really anything like that. I'm trying to wrap my head around. Is there any other like quadruped characters? It's really fascinating. And number 26, you know, it's when you think PlayStation 1, most people will think like Crash, Spyro, Metal Gear Solid, maybe, you know, Final Fantasy 7, obviously. But, you know, Spyro's always in like the top 5. So it being 26, you know, interesting. And Frogger and then Spyro 2. That's a great area for them to be in, for sure. Is like similar kind of range. But no, that's interesting. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. See, Resident Evil 1 down there, and now 3 is like way higher too. You know, spoilers, 2 is up at 16, but man, what a crazy franchise that just sold so well. Yeah, right, here we go. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, only 22. That's interesting to me. I like Oddsworld outselling Tony Hawk. Maybe, you know, I'm pretty sure Oddsworld did really good in like the UK, and maybe Tony Hawk did way better in America. So there could be that aspect, but it's really interesting to me. And here's another one, Rayman at 20. I would have thought Rayman 1 actually would have been way lower. And it's weird to say. I forget if it was a launch or around a launch title or something, but from what I hear, it's really hard. And whenever I hear people talk about it, I'm never hearing like this is really fun and really good. I'm just mainly hearing like this is really hard. So that's interesting. 4 million for Rayman. That's crazy. And the box art's pretty nice, so maybe there is that aspect of it. Here we go. Dragon Quest 7, 4.1 million. This is more where I'm expecting Dragon Quest to be in like the top 20s. I guess 4, was it 4 was that other one? Just really didn't hit. This one hit. Yeah, and then we got Tomb Raider 3, Last Revelation. This is the third one, correct? You know, this being super high makes sense. I've recently discovered that Lara Croft was the biggest thing. Like truly, like massive. I knew she was big. I didn't know massive. Oh, and then here we go, Spyro the Dragon 1. Wait a minute. Right, this is the third one. Okay, Spyro the Dragon 1. 17. This makes sense. Oh, I feel like an idiot now. Yeah, see, okay, this makes sense, you know. Crazy. Everything I said about that one, just copy pasted here. I'm an idiot. Resident Evil 2 being so high, that makes total sense. It's interesting too to see, like, I know player base was smaller, but you look at something like Mega Man, which you'd think Capcom was like hella known for. Like these Resident Evil games like blew Mega Man out of the water, especially as like a new franchise. I don't think were zombies crazy big in 1998, or was this kind of riding a new wave, starting a new wave? I guess zombies have always been fairly popular. Final Fantasy 9, 5 mil. Isn't that the end-ish of PS1? And the art style was a little more cartoony. I think people were like enjoying leaning more towards like the realism type stuff back then. But this is still really interesting to me. And yeah, 5 million. It is fascinating. Like if you were, you know, Square at the time and you make Final Fantasy 7, it's like, holy hell, it blows everything out of the water. 8 still does amazing, a little bit worse. 9 does considerably worse. Like when we look at the numbers for the other ones, it's like, huh, interesting. I wonder if you'd think like, did we just hit a wave? Is it gonna now be a huge downswing going forward with the franchise? I don't know. Crash Bandicoot 2, 5 million, and then Warped is right here too. So they were like really close. But look at the jump, 5.1 mil, and then 5.7 mil, only a year apart. That's pretty interesting. We haven't really seen. Well, we saw a jump here, I guess, and a jump here. So there are some jumps, but this is an interesting jump. I loved Crash Bandicoot Warped. It was my probably favorite PS1 game. And when Crash earned the bazooka at the end, that was like my favorite thing ever. So here we go. Tekken 2. So Tekken 1 was like way at the bottom of the list. 2, huge. I mean, it must have got great word of mouth. And then the arcade versions, the Tekken had arcade versions. I feel like an idiot. Yeah, so that's like an extraordinary rise up from the first one. It's like a difference of like 4 million, you know, sales. Like Namco must have felt pretty good about that. Tomb Raider 3, holy shit, my Tomb Raider knowledge is so far off. I'm sorry, everyone, but look at this. 6 high selling, 9 high selling, 11 high selling. Like I said, I knew Tomb Raider was big, but crazy. So we got Tomb Raider and then Metal Gear Solid. That's fantastic as well. Like, that's just kind of, because, well, Metal Gear Solid, I think, hit the same thing Final Fantasy did, where I was like, whoa, nice graphics. Like, it hit that area that people wanted to see. The jump up, the new graphics, the cutscenes, all that. The cool factor, insanity. Crash Bandicoot 1 being number 8. That's interesting. When we're looking at, you know, the mascots of the PlayStation 1, it's Crash Bandicoot. And he's number 8, but still, really high sales. Final Fantasy 8, 7 million. Oh, that's kind of funny. That makes sense. Like, great game, and coming off of Final Fantasy 7. Honestly, it could just be because the box art wasn't as enticing. I think maybe if they had the Gunblade, like if they just replicated Final Fantasy 7 box art with the Gunblade, I think that actually could have pushed it. Because the Gunblade, what's not as cool but almost as cool as the Buster Sword? It's the Gunblade. Tomb Raider. Okay, this is hilarious. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, 8 million. What happened, guys? I've never played it. It's probably good. It's probably fine. It's funny that the 5th best-selling game of all time is Harry Potter. This, like, when was the last we saw, like, using a license? It would have maybe been WWF, right? Insane. If something's wrong here, like the numbers are wrong or something, let me know, but that's funny. Tekken 3, number 4. Wow, another huge number for Tekken 2. I knew the games were big. The jump, that's insane. And then we got, of course, Gran Turismo. Final Fantasy 7 being at number 2 actually did surprise me, all things considered. Like a lot of these, I knew they were big, but I didn't know they were that big. It's pretty crazy. Like, what I would have thought might have been up here, honestly, could have been, you know, like Tomb Raider or some other kind of shooty game. Obviously, I'm thinking in modern day, but I'm thinking like, oh, is Medal of Honor going to be way up here? You know, Driver or GTA being way up here. You know, that makes sense to me. So, but Final Fantasy 7, a JRPG. Yo, gamers had good taste back then, let me tell you. And then number 1, of course, Gran Turismo. That makes sense. Best-selling sports franchise, maybe? MLB, maybe? Crazy. Okay, well, hey, thanks everyone. I wanted to make something, and I didn't want to edit that much. And Merchant 64 is hopefully coming out soon, and I've been working on that nonstop, so I can't really afford to sit around and edit, so I just wanted to try something like this and just have fun. So please, if anything I said in this video kind of made you feel weird or upset or whatever, let me know. And if anyone has just personal experience or is shocked by placements of some of these, also let me know, because I like talking to people that are there. I think it's pretty obvious by now. I didn't actually grow up with a PlayStation 1 so much. I mostly grew up with PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. But I love looking at PS1, and it forever fascinates me the more I dig into the library and stuff. If you liked this, you can subscribe and like and stuff. And yeah, I hope to actually make some better videos going soonish, maybe after March. So we'll see. Bye-bye.